Webster defines crunch time as a critical moment or period, like the end of a game, when decisive action is needed. Every sports fan knows this time in the game. Your palms sweat just a little more, your heart races just a little bit faster, and you live and die with every play until the final seconds tick off the clock and you're either celebrating a victory or disappointed by the defeat. The team at Crunch Time Sports Advantage Network understands just how critical these moments are. For us, it begins as soon as the next set of games are on the board. We evaluate the opening lines and any breaking news throughout the week. We cover each game inside and out, whether it's from inside the locker room to a huddle down on the field, the court, or the ice. We take you inside the meeting room with scouts, coaches, and executives. We have our fingers on the pulse of all the sports that we cover: the National Hockey League, NBA, college basketball, college football, and the National Football League. We are the Crunch Time Sports Advantage Network, and we're here to help you find your sports advantage. After all the data has been crunched, we then turn it over to Kenneth for the best analysis around. His unique perspective in both understanding the data and how it applies to the game and how you win is the Crunch Time Sports Advantage. Are you ready? The Crunch Time jet is fueled and ready for takeoff, and the Crunch Time Express is about to leave the station. Your VIP pass has been approved, so all aboard.
Welcome to the 2024 College Football Team Autopsy Report. An autopsy report is a document that summarizes the findings of an autopsy, an examination of a body after death. It includes details of the examination, tests, and observations performed, as well as the cause and manner of death. Just like a real autopsy report, the Crunch Time Sports Advantage Network College Football Autopsy Report examines a team's body of work after the season has concluded. This report includes a review of the team's season win total and whether they met expectations, key offensive, defensive, and special teams metrics that shaped the season, a deep dive into coaching decisions, including situational play and fourth down aggressiveness, a final season grade, evaluating execution, performance in key moments, and consistency, the final verdict, analyzing what went right, what went wrong, and what must be fixed for 2025. With the 2024 season in the rearview mirror, it's time to examine the patient. To present the findings, we have called in our Chief Medical Examiner and Senior Analyst, Kenneth.
And welcome into the Crunch Time Sports Advantage Network Team Autopsy Report for the Oregon Ducks. It's time to go a little quack attack here, and let's not waste any time as I got you for about the next 28 minutes. For all of you joining us on YouTube or our Twitter feed at Crunch Time VIP, streaming this live or during the replay, I want to say thank you for joining us. Anyone listening on your favorite podcast platform, I want to say thank you as well. Anything that I reference on the screen, I will absolutely have you covered with that information. So let's not waste any time. Let's talk about the head coach there for the Ducks in Dan Lanning. In his 3 years, nothing less than phenomenal there based on his win-loss record. In 41 games coached, he is 35 wins and 6 losses. 3 of those losses coming within his first year as a head coach. We know what this team did in the regular season, and that's where we're going to keep the focus right now. So let's start where we always start on these autopsy reports, and that is the betting report. The win total for the Ducks back in June was 10.5. With this team going perfect through the regular season, we know that they exceeded that by a game and a half there. So great job there, Ducks getting you to the pay window. Shout out to the late, great Gordon Soley for that reference. Now, when we look at our in-season win total adjustments, 3 very unique but highly predictive when it comes to a season win expectation for a team. We actually had the Ducks at a 9.8. So there are 2 games on the Ducks schedule that they were able to get the win. From a data standpoint, our numbers said, hey, they were fortunate to come out of there with a win. think we'll be able to find those two games fairly easy when you're looking at a team that went undefeated. Speaking of schedule, there are two components of a team schedule that we look at. We look at your strength of schedule and your strength of record. We'll start there with the strength of record first. This a team has no control over. Think about it this way. How well did your opponents do during their regular season in 2024? Now, your strength of schedule. Teams outside of Notre Dame only control about 20 to 25% of their schedule. Basically, who did they put on their non-conference schedule? Now, your in-conference schedule, pure luck of the draw. You could face the top 4 or 5 teams in your conference. One year, the following year, you could face the bottom 5 teams in your conference and none of those top 5 teams. So it is a pure luck of the draw. This is what we're going to see going forward with these overexpanded conferences, like what we're seeing right here with the Big Ten. So strength of schedule, 0.365. Folks, that was 61st out of 134 teams last year. Now, when we look at the strength of record, 0.515, that was 73rd there. So not all of Oregon's opponents last year had successful seasons. And I mean successful season by 8, 9, 10 more wins in the regular season. So we're going to see an Oregon Ducks schedule that was a little bit lighter than first thought it would be when they joined the Big Ten. And we'll pull up that graphic here for you now, those of you watching on YouTube or streaming this on our Twitter feed. Okay, so the Ducks opened with Idaho, an FCS opponent. So we'll kick that one out. Boise State was 11-1. Oregon State was 5-7. Then once we get into conference play, UCLA was 5-7. Michigan State was 5-7. Ohio State 10-2. Purdue 1-11. Illinois 9-3. Michigan was 7-5. Maryland was 4-8. Wisconsin was 5-7. And then Washington, to close out the regular season, was 6-6. So you're looking at, the Big Ten, where we're talking about the top 5 finishers in the regular season. Oregon only played Ohio State and Illinois. So they avoided Indiana. They avoided Penn State. Not their fault, but we're just looking at how differences in the schedules within a conference is going to be problematic for some of these teams going forward. Now, I said I'd be able to find you those 2 games. The first one was going to be obvious. It was the Ohio State game when they won that 32-31. The second one, also very easy to spot. That's the game against Wisconsin when they won that game 16-13. And credit Oregon for getting that win. That was their 7th straight game after their first bye, leading into their final bye. So this team was absolutely out of gas in that game and was fortunate to come out of that game with a victory. Now let's talk about the quality of defenses this Oregon offense faced on a week in and week out basis. We'll use that baseline number of 68 because that's how many Power 4 teams we had last season. So Boise State was 68. UCLA was 50th. Michigan State was 63rd. Ohio State, our number 1 power ranked defense last season. Illinois was 54th. Michigan 21st. Wisconsin was 36th. And then finally, the Washington Huskies were 43rd. So, pardon me, got a little bit of cough here. So, on average, you're looking at a average opponent that would have been power ranked 58th on the defensive side of the ball. I'm going to venture to guess that that defense would have probably been on a 5-7 team there. You're looking at defenses that when they're ranked that low, can't get stops, really put their offense in very challenging situations. So that's to kind of give you an idea of the schedule that Oregon faced last year. Now let's break down their offense. And the way we'll do that is for the offense, we're going to give you 3 metric numbers. We're going to give you the NCAA average in that category. We're going to give you Oregon's accounting stat number for that category, basically what you would see on any, excuse me, any reference site there. And then we're going to give you our adjusted number. So NCAA average was 28 points per game. Oregon was at 35.9 points per game. When we adjust that, we come up with a number of 36.1. So about 8 points better than the average team last season from an offensive standpoint. Okay, from their passing game, average team averaged about 227 yards per game last season. Oregon was at 278. When we adjust for opponent, just a downgrade of about 3 yards passing per game, 274 yards per game. So still well over the average there. As far as the ground game, average team last year ran the ball for about 160 yards per game. The Ducks were at 172. However, when we adjust for schedule, this Oregon Duck was closer to 199 yards per game rushing. So this ground game was actually even better than their accounting stats would say they were. And then finally, total offense per game. Average team about 387 yards per game. The Ducks were at 450 yards per game in total offense. When we adjust for opponent, does continue to skyrocket to 474 yards per game there in total offense. Now, here's some eye-popping numbers for you from an offensive advanced data point. And it would make sense when you're talking about a team that averaged over 35 points per game. Average team last season, drives ending with a score, either a touchdown or a field goal, was 40%. The Ducks were at 60%. Folks, you're talking about 6 out of every 10 drives this team had, they were either getting a touchdown or a field goal. That is phenomenal. When we look at drives ending with a touchdown, putting up 6 and putting up 7 instead of 3. Average team last season was at 29 points per game. 29% touchdowns last season. Let me go back and clean that up. I apologize. This little bit of a cough is starting to get to me a little bit. Okay, average team drives ending with a touchdown was 29%. The Ducks were at 47%. This is how you average over 35 points per game. You're putting up touchdowns, not just field goals. And then third down conversions, average team last season was at 39%. The Ducks, 10 percentage points better at 49%. So this team was doing a great job on third downs, which correlated into extending drives. And those drives ended a lot more times with touchdowns and not just field goals. Fantastic job there. When we look at sacks during the regular season, this defense allowed this team allowed just 18 sacks during the regular season. That's about 6 sacks better than the average team allowed last year. So this team did a great job of not turning the ball over. Also did a fantastic job of taking care of the quarterback, because the team only had 11 turnovers during the regular season. So your quarterback's not under a lot of duress from the opposing team's defense. And then that quarterback is making good decisions with the ball. I'll talk about their quarterback here in just a moment. Now let's take a look at our 3 E's as I get back on track here. So when I mention our 3 E's, how effective, how explosive, and how efficient were your offense? Not hard to imagine where Oregon's going to rank in these categories. Number 1, effectiveness offense in college football for us last year. Number 6 as far as explosiveness. So this team was getting big plays, whether it was in the run game or the passing game. And then finally, number 3 in efficiency. The Oregon Ducks were our number 2 overall ranked offense in college football last year, largely due by one of the most veteran quarterbacks that we've ever seen, thanks to a couple of redshirt years and the extra COVID year in Dylan Gabriel. In 14 games last season, Gabriel completed 73% of his passes for 3,857 yards, 30 touchdowns to 6 INTs, averaging almost 275 yards per game of passing offense there. Phenomenal work there by your number 1 quarterback. So when you have a quarterback that's been around the game of college football as long as Gabriel had, these are the kind of numbers that you would expect him to put up. Now, let's take a look at the defense here. And once again, we'll stick with that baseline of 68. How many of Oregon's opponents were inside of that top 68? Well, Boise State, 15th best power ranked offense for us last season. No surprise there with Aston Genty there in that backfield. Ohio State was number 8 in offensive power ranking. Illinois was 45th. Maryland was 60th. And then finally, Wisconsin was 66th. Only 5 of their opponents were inside of that top 68. 4 of their opponents were outside of the top 85 there. You're talking about Oregon State, 96th. UCLA was 89th. Michigan State was 103. And then finally, Purdue, 108. So an average power ranking of 67. Now you're looking at a offense that would have probably been on maybe even a 4-8 team. Best case scenario would be 5-7 there. So this Oregon defense did not face an elite offense outside of Ohio State and Boise State. So when we look at the defensive numbers here in just a moment, I think we may start to pick apart that defense just a little bit. Hard to nitpick a team that was 12-0 during the regular season, but that's kind of the task of why we do these autopsy reports. So remember, I said just the 2 data points here. So points per game allowed, the Ducks allowed 17.8 points per game. When we adjust that for opponent, goes to 15.2. Fantastic job there. Force pass defense, 176 yards per game. When we adjust for opponent, goes to 152 yards per game. So about a 24-yard per game improvement there. And then their rush defense, 161 yards per game. When we adjust for opponent, that number goes up slightly to 131. So you're talking about a 5-yard difference there. And then total offense allowed 302 yards per game. When we adjust for opponent, goes down to 283. So good job there by the Ducks playing defense. Now, their opponent's drives ending with a score, touchdown or field goal, just 25%. So 1 out of every 4 trips the opponent had, they were putting a score on the board. As far as putting touchdowns on the board, this defense was absolutely stingy. 15% of their opponent's drives ended with a touchdown. Phenomenal work there. And then third down conversions, 29.7% is what their opponents were converting on third downs. So great job there. They also did a great job of getting after the opponent's quarterback. 34 sacks during the regular season. About 10 better than the average team last year. And they did a great job of getting their opponents off the field on fourth down as well. 23 attempts, just 11 conversions by their opponents, 48% conversion rate. Did also force 16 turnovers. So let's take a look at their 3 E's on defense. This was the 10th best effective defense in college football last year for us. For us giving up explosive plays, 7th best, 8th in efficiency. The Oregon Ducks defense was 7th overall in our defensive rankings last year. So you're talking about a top 10 offense, a top 10 defense. That's how you make it to the college football playoffs when you're in that kind of range. Let's take a look at the special teams before we get to the coaching breakdown. So the special teams unit was absolutely phenomenal as well. 83% field goal percentage there. Fantastic job there. Did miss 2 extra points during the regular season. So want to make sure you take care of that. And then a punting unit that was absolutely elite. About 4 punts per game, 46 yards per punt. So you're flipping the field when you're not scoring. That was 8th best in college football last year. +5 in the turnover differential. You absolutely can win a lot of games during your regular season with that margin. And this team did not beat itself with penalties. 5.5 penalties per game for about 44 yards there. So great job there of not making a lot of dumb penalties. That goes to coaching. So good job there by Coach Lanning. As far as now, expect all of these numbers to be perfect because they were undefeated. This team was 4-0 during the regular season in one-score games. They were 6-0 against quality opponents. So fantastic job there. As far as going for on 4th down a lot, Dan Lanning is not one of those coaches, just 11.7% of the time. 99th out of 144 qualifying coaches there in college football, which is a little bit surprising when you look at their conversion rate, 71%, 12 out of 17 on 4th down tries there. So probably could have gone for it a little bit more. Probably didn't need to, but it was there for them if they needed it. Now let's take a look at the offense and defensive splits here for Oregon. In 14 total games last year, and this includes the, the conference championship and the college football playoffs. In those 13 victories, this offense was averaging 36 points per game, 278 yards passing on 32 attempts, 8.6 yards per pass attempt, 11.8 yards per completion. Did a great job of running the ball. 36 rushing attempts for 172 yards per game rushing. 4.7 yards per rushing attempt. Let's take a look at their 3rd down conversion. 50% on 3rd downs, 67% on 4th downs. Committed 11 turnovers in 13 games, so less than 1 turnover per game there. We can kind of just talk about some of the big numbers for them in the games that they lost. We know the only game that they lost was to Ohio State in the playoffs. In that ball game, just 21 points there for the Ducks offense. I'm just trying to pull up that number that game really quickly so I can walk through it. So Oregon scored 21 points, was 8 of 9 on 3rd downs, 2 of 3 on 4th downs. Had 299 yards passing on 42 attempts. Here's the big one though. 28 rushing attempts for negative 23 yards. So could not even get positive yardage there. As far as their defense, and I'll go ahead and pull over their splits here. In those 13 victories, just 18 points per game is what they were allowing on 176 yards per game passing on 31 attempts, 5.8 yards per passing attempt, 10.5 yards per completion for their opponents. 32 rushing attempts, but only 126 yards. So good job of playing run defense there, 4 yards per rushing attempt. Let's see, their opponents were converting 32% on 3rd downs, 43% on 4th downs, did for 16 turnovers. Now, when we look at the game against Ohio State in the playoffs, they're at the Rose Bowl, gave up 41 points, 500 yards in total offense, 319 yards of passing offense, 17 for 26, 319 yards, 12.3 yards per passing attempt. Wow. And the Buckeyes absolutely ran all over the Ducks defense. 31 rushing attempts, 181 yards, 5.8 yards per rushing attempt. Just a absolutely dominating performance there. So we'll talk about, because there wasn't a whole lot that went wrong for this team in the regular season. So we'll talk about just the regular season, what went right. Elite quarterback play, as we mentioned, balanced offense attack, and shut down defense in key moments there for the Ducks. So let's go ahead and get to their final grade, because I'm really interested to see their final grade and final verdict. And no surprise, the Oregon Ducks will receive our highest grade of any team that we did in this series. That is an A+. When you run the table in the regular season, it is hard to nitpick this team from a grading standpoint during the regular season only. So the final verdict: Oregon finished the regular season as the nation's top team, boasting an elite defense, dominating an elite offense, dominant defense, and strong coaching. If they maintain that efficiency in the playoffs, they're now going to become a serious contender to the national championship race there. Oregon had a strong season, no question about that. They showed one of the most explosive offenses in the nation. However, defensive lapse in critical moments and struggles in high-stake games absolutely could have cost the Ducks not one but two games during the regular season, and would have derailed their opportunity to play for a national championship in the college football playoffs. The offensive line was excellent. Defense was spectacular during the regular season. We know what happened in the postseason, so we'll get to what this team needs to do to get back to the college football playoffs here in 2025. I'm going to give three keys here for the Ducks. One, settle in on who's going to be the starting quarterback in 2025. Is it going to be the former UCLA transfer in Dante Moore, who transferred in knowing that he would be sitting behind Dylan Gabriel for 1 year? If not, do they have another option at the quarterback position? So settling in the quarterback position is going to be a key for this offense in 2025. Key number two, maintain offensive efficiency in big games. We talked about it. The two biggest games during the regular season, we had a little bit of a mixed bag there, and some of that was just due to fatigue there against Wisconsin, but got to make sure that you execute at a high level against elite defenses going into 2025. And then the final key, continue developing playmakers on both sides of the ball. You know that you're losing some talented running backs and wide receivers on the offensive side of the ball. Got to replenish that group, as well as some playmakers on defense at all three levels: pass rusher, linebacker, and in the secondary. I think if Oregon is able to focus on these areas, they can position themselves once again for another college football playoff run in 2025.
Thank you for tuning into this podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and our deep dive into all things college football. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the show on your favorite podcast platform. And if you're watching on YouTube, be sure to like this video and hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at CrunchTimeDIP for updates, insights, and more content. And make sure to visit our website at CrunchTimeSportsAdvantage.com for in-depth blogs, game previews, and information about our Crunch Time Express handicapping packages. Thanks again for listening, And we'll see you next time for our next patient on the 2024 College Football Autopsy Report.